Yeah.
All right, guys. Sorry about that. It seems like we got a lot of people on the call already. Dave, make sure John and Sal are open with their lines as well.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, great. All right, we're going to record this call. I want to appreciate everyone getting on the line here. Please email or text Dave Ganelin if you're not able to see my screen or my video. First, I'm glad they canceled Ursa. I think that was a good move on everybody's part not to congregate in San Diego. What we want to do over the next 30 minutes here is take you through the current information that we have related to the CARES Act, who qualifies, who doesn't. We think that is going to potentially be modified in our favor because there are some loopholes here that do not apply to the health club industry, but they do apply to the restaurant industry, the hotel industry, and the grocery industry on a location-by-location basis. So we'll give you an update on that. We're wanted to use an analogy here just to get everybody calm and in place. The first thing is on the crisis management side, I've done research. As long as you have shelter and then water and then food, everyone will be okay. So please stay safe. We're just as concerned about you as we are our own employees. So now on to business. Since there's no sports going on now, we wanted to kind of set up here a little bit of a football analogy. And 30 days ago, we had raving fans, all of our paying members. We had our players, our key employees. We had us sitting in a skybox with all of our investors and our banks and our landlords and our vendors all getting paid, and everything was great and happy. I think what's happened over the last 2 weeks is basically Super Bowl CV, Super Bowl coronavirus put us in a position now where we're basically down 14 points at halftime. And instead of halftime being 20 minutes, it seems like we're going to have 90 days to figure out how to play this game and get back onto the field. So using that halftime analogy here, you know, the matrix of where we are today, we basically got our employees that they can get back to work, our fans hoping that we reopen. We've got to find capital over the next 90 days to make sure we get through this period and be stable on the other side. We got to partner up and get through the banks and have those discussions. And Sal and John are going to help talk through that as we go through the next several pages. Landlords, some of them might be very amenable as you're a key tenant in their strip center. And some of them might say, hey, look, that's great that you're out of business right now, but I've got debt on my company and my banks are not as lenient with me, and therefore you're going to take the brunt of what I'm dealing with. And then in business, you've got several vendors that are mom and pop operators or distributors that are trying to keep their own lights on, and we've got to go through that. So this could be till August 1st. This could be till November 1st. And what we're hoping here is that over the next 90 to 120 days that we can reset the members, the players, ourselves, and our constituents all back in order. So what do we need to do here to get our fans back into the stadium and to reboot? I think one is we've got to take a deep breath. And then what we've got to do here is we've got to think about, all right, if I'm at halftime and I'm a professional team and you're the head coach, let's think about getting all of our coordinators in place and think about all the decision makers that we need to get through this period. So I've got my lawyer, my banker, my real estate advisor, any other advisors, and my key management team, and come up with a name for that, and that's your email distribution to your cabinet. We need somebody who's head of player personnel, whether that's someone who's head of HR, whether that's one of your top trainers, whether that's your top salespeople. Those people need to be checking in with your employees, and the ones that you are definitely going to keep and bring back, we need to make sure that we're communicating with them. And then there's some innovative things that people are doing, whether it's online workouts, whether it's reward systems, whether it's going on Burn Along to keep some engagement with your members and your fan club. And what we're going to have is on a link here after this discussion is a Excel sheet that you can use as a workbook to basically run this play. On the landlord side, we're going to go through in a couple of minutes here what you need to do and the conversations you're going to need to have with your landlords. We're assuming that you're going to be anywhere between 20 to 30%, and then maybe even higher of a revenue drop when you reopen. So the discussions that you're going to need to have with your landlords, one is obviously going to be this gap period and determining how we're going to either push off our rent payments and potentially add those onto the back end, or we're going to be asking for rent reduction. The key part of this is intelligence. We need to know who your landlord is, what position that they're in, what other tenants are potentially in the process of negotiating deals, and staying on the pulse of what's going on in your local market is going to be key for you to cut the best deal that you can. On the financing side, and I'd like to bring Sal in here, but before you make any offers or ask for anything, you've got a relationship with your bank. You probably have someone in the industry here that, like Sal, who's not only your business relationship and partner, but he's also your friend. And the key here is to find out what the sentiment is of the bank that owns your loan. Is it in the workout group directly because it's a cash flow loan? Is the bank in a position where they're trying to sell off some of their loans? Are they willing to work with you? So the best part here is to listen first. You don't need to make any decisions right away. And Sal, do you want to add to some commentary here?
Sure. Thanks, Pete. Well, first of all, Macrolease is a bank-owned finance company. We've been in business 50 years, and most of those 50 years we've been in the fitness space. It's a significant portion of our portfolio, and we have deep, long-lasting relationships in the business. A little over two weeks ago, when we saw what was happening, the crisis that was taking place, we made a decision to provide all our borrowers who required it 90 days interest only, or if that wasn't sufficient for them, we would go 90 days deferred payments. So in the last 2 weeks, we've been interacting with all our relationships and providing that relief for them. And many of them are saying, yeah, that's hopefully 90 days will be sufficient. What if it isn't sufficient? And what we're saying is, listen, we're going to take 90 days at a time. In 60 days, we'll review it again, and 90 days again, and we'll see what the market is like. We want to keep you in business. We're partners, and we're going to do everything that makes sense and is prudent for both you and us. We're common sense lenders. We don't want to put anyone out of business. We put folks out of business that's going to hurt us as well. And so we just want to ride the wave with everyone and look forward to getting on the other side. A lot of clients are saying, what about the approvals that are in place? What's going on with those approvals? And we're saying the same thing. Those approvals are in place. We're going to review those approvals in 30, 60, 90 days when the doors start opening. And our goal is to follow through with those approvals and fund those deals as equipment is delivered and as those clubs are opened. For new clubs that are going to open, or for transactions that are in the pipeline right now, we're continuing to move those transactions through our credit committee to get them credit approved. We're going to approve those transactions as we have been doing. And then with the same caveat, we're going to come back in 30, 60, 90 days, depending on what goes on with this, with the health scenario and the health crisis in the country. And then we're gonna cash out those deals when they're ready to be cashed out. But it's a very fluid situation, so it's very difficult to be 100% committed on a date right now. It's fluid, and we continue to talk to everyone on a regular basis, and we are going to get through this crisis with folks, and we are going to continue to be in business and continue lending and continue funding these folks. The most important thing is communication, like you said, Pete. And we are communicating more than ever with our customers who are in crisis mode, and everyone's handling it differently. But the bottom line is everyone wants to stay in business, and we want to help people get through this and look forward to better days down the road for sure.
Got it. Well, Sal, I'll bring you back in here in a few minutes.
Sure.
John Schmidt, head of national accounts for New Tech, SBA lender of choice. We've done several transactions with them. I asked him to be on the call here as well. John, could you give a bit of a pulse of how you're looking at some of the accommodations that are being requested, and then we'll get into some of the PPP plan here with CARES Act afterwards. Dave, can you unlock him on the mute?
I didn't lock him. He should be able to jump right in.
Okay.
Just for those on the call, go ahead and put your questions in the box, and we'll get to them after the presentation's over. John, you should be able to chime in.
Right. In the interest of time here, why don't I just jump to the next page on page 10, and we'll have this available on the for download afterwards. As we talk to groups here and what their forecast is going to be, unfortunately, I think we're getting a taste of our own medicine, where we're trying to sell memberships and say, look, we need 21 days for you to break your bad habits and come and live a healthy lifestyle. We're already in day 21, effectively, of people not attending our gyms and our studios. Obviously, people are doing home workouts. People have lost interest completely. People are working out outside. So from a standpoint of looking at your business, hey, John?
This is useless.
Okay. In the interest of looking at your business and maybe looking at this in a sobering light, assuming you're opening up anywhere between August to, let's say, if it's even November, let's forecast out what this is going to look like, what your rent needs to be, what your bank payments need to be in order to reopen at least at break even for November. So I think you should take a look at your personal training being hit probably closer to 50%, your membership base probably down at least 30%. And this will give you a guide to determine, where can I be on my rental side to start? Where can I be on my bank payments? Thinking about what I could do on the CAM side. I don't know if you need to mute somebody, Dave. I have some dogs in the mix here.
Yeah, whoever is got a dog, can you please go on mute?
Thanks. There may be business insurance that you might be able to take here. We think that for the most part, this is not going to be covered. However, if you're not able to get into your location, it might trigger a business interruption insurance. And we really need to take a look at this and then be able to back into with your team where you think you're going to be when we reopen. So I'd start with the future guidelines in place and determine where we're going to be when we reopen and back into what our strategy is from now until then. Hopefully we can get John back on here on the mic.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Perfect. You're in.
Great, John.
Not sure what the issue was, but good to be here.
Thanks, Sean.
That wasn't me with the dogs in the background. My wife won't let me get a dog, so definitely wasn't me. Anyway, appreciate you having me. My name is John Schmidt. I'm a Senior Vice President with New Tech Business Services Corp. New Tech is a publicly traded company on the NASDAQ. Ticker symbol is NEWT, Newt. We are, amongst other things, the largest non-bank SBA lender in the United States. We're the second largest SBA lender in the United States amongst the banks. It's been an interesting time. Our job is always to try to help small businesses to gain access to capital, to grow their business, or in times like these, try to survive. So we are probably, I'd say, busier than ever, fielding calls and advising our customers and prospective customers on how they can take advantage of the stimulus package, otherwise known as the CARES Act. The portion of the package that is obviously imminent is the PPP Payroll Protection Program, which effectively gives most businesses assuming you qualify, the ability to obtain a grant. It's technically a loan, but it's a forgivable loan after 2 months. The grant will be the equivalent of 2.5 times average monthly payroll in 2019. So that number is how much you would qualify for. After 2 months, 8 weeks from the time that the loan is funded, you will be revisited and your payroll will be reviewed. And as long as your payroll matches that it was during the average month in 2019, the loan will be forgiven. During the time that you have the access to the funds, you can use the funds for any business operation, whether it's payroll, whether it's rent payments, mortgage payments, utility payments, anything that helps you keep the business open. Now, if you think about it, the payroll protection program was created with the sole purpose of giving employers what it took to keep their payroll whole, to keep their employees on board. And that's why there's the 2-month period that may be extended, but for now, it's a 2-month period. This could change. It's a fluid situation, but for now, it's effectively a no-brainer as long as you have less than 500 employees, as long as you're in an eligible business, which yours would be, you would most likely qualify for this grant. Applying for it, we're still waiting for final details from the SBA. They're working now on their SOP. Once we have the final details in terms of the program, our online application will be ready to go. I'm going to send to Pete and Dave a link that each of you can visit in order to submit an inquiry to have an application started and have a file vault started so you can start to get us the information you'll need, and that will effectively start the application process. We're being told, now we're the lender, so it's really going to be up to us when we fund, but we're being told based on what we're hearing regarding the process that you should have your funding inside of 5 days from the time of the application process starting, assuming, of course, you cooperate and get us everything we need in a timely manner. That is, that's a high level on the program. If there are any questions, I don't know if now's the time, but happy to help.
Yeah, John, thanks. Let me go through a couple of points here and some of the loopholes that are going to affect the number of people on the call here. One is the loans are expected to be at 4%, 10-year term. If you qualify, and you can use that money for whatever you need to use it for. As John indicated here, you do not have to reemploy all of your employees that you put on unemployment over the last couple of weeks, unless you want that loan portion to be forgiven and allocate the money towards that. So this could be a potential windfall for groups that are trying to put capital on the balance sheet. And that's basically a 10-year loan at 4%. The issue that we have is that there is a carve out that if you have more than 500 employees, and it is not on a per location basis, if you have more than 500 employees, you will not be able to qualify for getting money under these terms unless IRSA or some other lobbying group is able to put the health clubs in the same basket as the hotels, the restaurants, and the groceries. The issue here is there's an SIC code, to make this short, that if you're in the 7-2 starting SIC code, you are able to basically say, instead of looking at my company as a affiliated umbrella, I could look at it from a standpoint of each physical location that I have, and then that would be allowed to be used for a restaurant that's got 50 locations. Could basically say, I'm going to treat this as 50 different separate business entities, and then do the math on the 2.5 times payroll. And that's in order to keep those businesses liquid. In this industry, in the health club industry right now, we are not qualifying for that based on the current writing of the code unless there's a modification. So if you're not qualified for that, and there are a number of groups on here that have more than 500 employees, part-time workers, and independent contractors that would all be included in that calculation, we're going to need to find money from somewhere else, which could be another SBA loan. It could be one of the disaster relief loans, which don't have as high of a dollar amount on it. But I think one of the parts that we need to consider here on page 12 is if there's any investor or any member that has reached out to you over the last 24 months that said they want to be an investor in your company, or you have a relationship with a group that would potentially be a partner for you to either buy down some debt or put money on the balance sheet, these are all emails and phone numbers for you to dust off and to talk to them about getting involved in investing in your business. On the private equity side and on the hedge fund and the special situations groups, there are a number of new investment funds that we have access to. Some people on the phone have direct access to as well, that are looking for these types of opportunities to potentially buy down some of the bank debt at a discount, or invest in your company at a more normalized valuation. Over the last several years, we've been working on deals between 8 to 12 times EBITDA. The reality is that multiples are going to go back down to normalized levels. And if you own 3 or 4 health clubs, you're probably at a 3 to 4 times value. And the question is going to be off of what number? Is it off of the month prior when you closed in February? Is it off of the new matrix that I put together that you can figure out for 30% decrease in revenue? Or is it looking at your business and saying, whatever money I can take in, I'm going to take it in, and I'm going to be creative, and I'm going to be amenable to be in a position where I'm stronger when we come out the other side. So I would say at least 90 days is what we need to position ourselves for. And quite frankly, it's probably going to be until November. So 30 days before reopening, think about this as that we're at halftime right now instead of 20 minutes. We've got 90 days. We've got to figure out how to make sure we retain some relationship members with our employees that we want to keep. And then potentially we're getting some discount or abatement on our bank debt. We're getting some kind of discount or abatement on our landlords. And I think we're going to try and make all of our vendors whole, because we're going to need to have those relationships post-closing. Want to open it up to questions here. These are definitely trying times, but I think we've got time on the clock to figure out what the best path is. And these options will open up and evolve over the next several weeks. So without further ado, Dave, you want to go through and either unlock some people here, or John?
Actually, it'd be good to just look in the chat. There's been some really good questions coming in. If you back up a little bit from Joanna and Daniel, et cetera, maybe we can just hit some of those.
Yeah, I can kind of go down the line where appropriate.
Sure.
Joanna, I've actually heard both. Up until today, I was pretty convinced that it was going to be based on the 2019 payroll, average month in 2019. I then heard today that it would be the previous 12 months from the application date. So, this is still a fluid situation, and we're waiting for final information from the SBA to get that, obviously those details. Once they're available, we can certainly let everybody know, but that's one of the things where there's been kind of, different opinions on the street. Again, I thought it was 2019. I'm gonna stick by that, but that's all I can help you with right now. Daniel Cox, give your point of view on the $100,000 limit. Yes. So again, this is a kind of a moving target, but from what I understand, the $100,000 limit is the amount that can be counted towards the calculation of the average monthly payroll in 2019 or whatever the period is. I don't believe that anyone who earned over $100,000 would be excluded from the calculation. I just believe that only $100,000 of that salary or of those earnings would be included. Again, final word on that to be determined. When does the 8-week loan forgiveness period begin? It begins from the from the receipt of the funds is when the 8-week period begins. 8 weeks from that time, your payroll will be reviewed, and it'll be determined how much, if not all, will be forgiven. Does the 500 employees apply to franchisees? A franchisee is considered independent of the franchisor, if I'm understanding the question correctly. If you have a franchise with 6 employees, it's considered 6 employees. Not every employee from the entire franchise or franchisor would be included.
Agreed, John. I think what the other part of the question is that if you have a chain that's got 15 clubs and you're not a franchise and they're all corporate owned, that would be deemed over 500 as an umbrella. It's not looked at as 15 separate businesses, but if you are a Gold's Gym operator and they're not looking up towards the franchisor to determine the employees at your franchisee, as far as we understand it now.
Agreed. Thank you for that. Do we know for sure if payroll protection program and the EIDL program are mutually exclusive, or can you apply for both, possibly utilize both? What I'm told is that you can certainly apply for both. You cannot utilize both. Again, that's one of the things that I've heard some contradicting information about. But again, you know, we're a very large player in the SBA space, so the information we're getting tends to be pretty credible. But again, until we have final details from the SBA, I wouldn't give my 100% stamp of approval on anything. But I am told you cannot double dip. You cannot take part in both programs. What's the rationale for the 90-day time frame, November? Which 90-day time frame are we talking about?
Yeah, this is from our presentation here. Okay. Look, we don't have a crystal ball here, but obviously the month of April is completely shot. We believe May is probably also not a time frame where any government is going to allow events to occur or have any of these types of businesses open or run any live events or sports related games. So, you know, I would say the earliest would be end of June, but we're also looking at this at a very conservative timeline on some of the transactions that we're contemplating, where we're just shut down until November. And how much cash do we need at those companies to keep the corporate overhead team in place and cover whatever other expenses are required. So the rationale for the 30% reduction, I mean, there's really no precedent for this. Obviously, after September 11th, I think there was an increase in the number of health club memberships sold. In addition, the traffic was as high as we ever saw because people want to take better care of themselves. But I think the issue is going to be, can we reconfigure the clubs to provide comfort in the social distancing? You know, Steve Roma, who's likely on the call here, you know, looking at the chemical tanks like the Orkin guys walk around with. You need your maintenance people having that and wiping down equipment every 30 minutes to an hour. Is group exercise class is going to go on? Is daycare going to go on? So I think you're going to see a very staggered return to the clubs. And I would say from a standpoint of talking to your landlords and talking to your bankers and agreeing to anything related to vendor payments. Assume that we're opening up in a more reduced amenity set, and that you're not going to get people comfortable that everything's safe and sound, and that there's zero chance that they could potentially get something, assuming there's no vaccine that shows up by then, or the virus isn't, eradicated by the weather.
From
John, do you want to take the next one?
Yeah, can we pay ourselves and still get forgiveness? Yeah, payroll is the primary use of these of the grant. So the only thing that's going to be looked at to determine forgiveness or the level of forgiveness is what your payroll looks like 8 weeks from the time that you receive the funds. It'll be compared to whatever time the average, of whatever time period was used, whether it be, the day before you got the funds to 12 months before that, or just all of 2019. And if you're whole 8 weeks from the time that you received the funds, if you're whole compared to that previous time period, you're forgiven. As long as the monies were used for an eligible use, for lack of a better word. Payroll is one of them. Rent, mortgage, utilities, business operations in general.
Hey, Sal, could we just go to you here with a question directly? If you know that one of your clients has taken out funding from the CARES Act and has this capital on the balance sheet, does that change your view of giving a deferral, or if they have cash that you want to get paid, or have you not obviously gone through that moral hazard related situation?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, as John mentioned before, and I said also, this is a very fluid scenario that is unprecedented. So if one of our relationships is getting some money from the CARE Act, we'd be very happy about that, because it's only going to prop them up and strengthen them. And so then we're going to dig in and ask them what they're doing with the money, and we're going to come to a happy agreement on what they owe us and how they're going to pay it back, and proceed in a rational manner. It really all depends on the specific scenario, where they are with us, on what we would ask for and what we wouldn't ask for. But overall, we would see that as a positive, because as I stated earlier, we only want to see our relationships and the entire industry continue to improve and get over this horror show. So money from the federal government is going to help, and we welcome it.
Great. John, you want to pick up on this? I don't know if you have any visibility on the FEMA recoverable loss.
Yeah, nothing on that. Can't comment on FEMA. I'll move on to the next question, which is, what if some employees don't want to come back, they want to stay on unemployment, or concerned about being around people? That's fine. It's possible here to have a portion of the loan forgiven and not the full amount of the loan. So if your payroll is 80% whole, the loan will be 80% forgiven. So that's certainly an option. The other comment I would make is that you do have the ability, since again, the only thing that's being looked at is what your payroll looks like 8 weeks from the time you got the loan, and it's being compared to the time period that we discussed earlier. So if you have people that have been laid off, or people that you will need to lay off for one reason or another in the coming weeks, you do have that 8 week period to rehire, to then make your payroll whole. Just wanted to throw that out there, because a lot of people have already laid off.
Right. So if people have been laid off and are at the club level, you're not going to rehire them until the reopening. So technically, you wouldn't get any, unless you wanted to take the loan out, put people back onto the payroll, and then get the loan forgiveness. John, I guess that's a route if you wanted to take. Obviously, you're not generating revenue during that period of time.
Right. Well, the hope is that, 8 weeks from the time everyone gets this money, the hope is that the gyms are open again. Businesses are open again. And that's why I say the term may be extended depending on, just how bad this thing gets and how long it lasts.
Got it. Okay. Just in the interest of time here, obviously everyone's pretty busy, whether you're working from home or have other conference calls. We put together a Excel sheet here that, let me see if I can open this up. We put together an Excel sheet here, basically based on the slides that I had gone over on the working group list, on your club summaries here, your lease summaries, your banking relationships, and a short little matrix here on your P&L effect to take a look at anything that's in blue, who's not an investment banker by trade. Everything in blue here is modifiable. So if you want to plug in these numbers, and then you can look at what your payroll expense, what your rent expense, and then taking a look at what your potential monthly debt payments are. But I really, that starting with the end in mind of where you're going to end up, this is probably the most important exercise to do before you embark on any discussions with your landlords or with your banks, and get involved all the people in your company that are going to help you make these decisions. The landlords in general are not going to just be as accommodating as it sounds like macro leases. So be prepared for a gunfight. From a standpoint of banks that are highly levered and getting pressure to get these loans back, if they know that you have capital, they are going to try and hold you to it. So we'll see how things shake out. But having the right advisors around you and your lawyer and your full team fully engaged here is going to be the difference between success and failure. Dave Ganelin, you want to share the link that we have for these two files, and we are happy to answer any questions by email. We'll have John and Sal's information up on the link that we'll send you, integritysq.com. Everyone stay safe. We'll get through this. But it's halftime, so let's make all the modifications we can to come out the other side and win again.
Pete, real quick, this is Dave. I just put the link in the chat to everybody. That should send you on. Give that a minute or two to do its thing. We just set it up. Also, I've been speaking with Dave Fowler over this, and he's going to be on Thursday at 5 p.m. Everyone is going to get an email of this recording, an email of the links, an email of the resources, contact info again for John and Sal. So be on the lookout for that via email as well. I think that's it. No, Pete?
I think that's it. Thanks for everyone to be on the call. We'll get through this together. If you have any questions, let us know. If you talk to anybody over at URSA or anybody who's able to lobby on our behalf to get us included in the CARE Act, if we have over 500 employees, that would be the most pivotal thing that we can get inserted here. John and Sal, thanks for your time, and go Halo.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
it.
And
Thanks, everybody.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.